After 11, the tower changed personalities. During the day, Sterling Tower was a glittering cathedral of velocity executives gliding between glass rooms, interns clacking keyboards with the terror of youth, assistants juggling calendars like circus jugglers with a smile that cost extra. But after 11, the tower inhaled. The fluorescent lights thinned to a calm glow, and the building handed itself to the hum of servers, the heartbeat of elevators sleeping between floors, and a man with a mop. Ethan Miller preferred it that way. The quiet didn't judge him. He wore the uniform navy pants, gray polo, the badge that said Janitor like a brand burned onto skin. Once, he wore a different badge. Ethan Miller, mechanical systems engineer. But that had been another lifetime. A life that ended on a rain-polished highway with a brake light, a scream, and the sound a heart makes when it rips. Now he moved steadily across the marble lobby, shoulders strong, hands calloused, head clear. He liked clean lines, a floor that reflected light like a river, a trash bin emptied to kindness, a smear of coffee, erased as if no one had ever been careless. Cleaning was not shame. It was proof that chaos could be reversed for a while. His phone buzzed. A text. Lily. I put the picture we drew on the fridge. You'll love it. Good night, Daddy. He smiled at the tiny heart. Good night, Bug. He whispered to air that carried no reply. They were okay. Ramen more often than he liked. Rent 2 days late more often than his pride would confess. But, okay. He could handle the mop. He could handle the whispers that skimmed past him like thrown pennies. He could handle the ache that woke him some nights with his wife's name in his mouth. He turned the cart toward the underground garage, the last task before a break, and a vending machine coffee. A fluorescent bulb flickered overhead. The garage smelled of rubber and rain and money-sleek cars sleeping like sharks. He heard it then, a sound too small to be a person and too human to be anything else. A breath snagging. A whisper that wasn't words. Ethan left the cart. Hello? The sound was a frightened kitten of a voice, clawing at the dark. He followed it past a Jaguar, past a Tesla, past the kind of black sedan that escorted power. The voice hiccuped again, then vanished. He turned the corner and saw a small heap of pale fabric near a concrete pillar, knees scraped, one shoe missing, hair damp with sweat. A girl. 8 or 9. The world telescoped to her face. He knelt. Hey there. You're okay. I'm Ethan. Her eyes fluttered. Can't breathe. He touched her forehead. Burning. The kind of heat that frightened adults. Okay. I've got you. He scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing, but her heat scorched through his shirt. He started running, boots hammering the concrete, breath in bursts. The elevator would be too slow. Stairs, then the exit sign glowing like a promise. Cold air slapped his face as he hit the sidewalk. He flagged the first cab, barked the destination. The driver took one look at the girl's gray lips and floored it. Stay with me, Ethan whispered to her. Name. She blinked. Ella. Ella, he said. As if the name itself could keep her tethered. Good. I've got you. You're safe. The hospital swallowed them, all white corridors and swift hands, clipboards slapping against palms. Guardian? A nurse asked. Found her in the garage at Sterling Tower. Ethan said. She's burning up. She fainted. The nurse frowned, then recognition flashed like a camera bulb. Sterling Tower. Is she? I just found her. Please. They took Ella. For a few seconds, Ethan stood with his hands hanging, empty, as if they had lost their purpose now that she was no longer in them. He moved to a plastic chair in the waiting area. Sat, leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes closed. Only then did he notice that his shirt smelled like lemon, disinfectant, and fear. He stayed until the sky bruised toward morning, and the light outside turned the hospital windows to pewter. A nurse walked over. She's stable, high fever, likely a sudden viral thing. She'll be okay. Thank you for bringing her. Can you? He swallowed. Can you tell her mom? I mean someone at the tower? We've notified the family. He wrote a note on a scrap of paper he found in his pocket. The kind you tear from the corner of your own life. She's safe now. He placed it beside a plastic cup of water on the tray by her bed. She breathed steadily, eyes closed, one hand curled like a petal. He almost touched the back of that hand. He did not. He left before the security questions grew teeth. By 9, the building was awake and hungry again. Ethan clocked in, swapped out mop heads, and ignored the 2 security guards speaking low by the supply closet. He had slept for an hour in a folded chair in the janitor's room and felt stitched together with thread too thin to hold. By 10, it began. "Did you hear?" a receptionist whispered to another. Not whispering at all. "What about the kid?" CEO's daughter. The janitor was seen at the hospital. "Which janitor?" "The tall one." Serious face. Hands like rope. "Ew, do you think?" Ethan walked past with his cart. The words swung toward him like a chandelier waiting to fall. By noon, a text arrived from facilities. "Report to 54th floor executive suite immediately." Ethan's mouth dried. He smoothed his shirt, took the executive elevator he rarely rode, and watched the numbers climb as if he were being pulled by a hook. The 54th floor was all glass and hush, and the sound of shoes that cost rent. He followed a nervous assistant to an office too large to be legal. The woman inside was the sort of beautiful that made people lie to her without being asked. Her hair was a dark blade, her eyes colder than the view behind her. Ava Sterling. She did not sit. She did not offer a chair. She didn't offer anything. "Mr. Miller," she said. "Yes, I'll keep this brief." Her voice could have cut fruit. "My daughter was found at the hospital last night." Security reviewed footage. "You took her there?" "Yes," he said. "She collapsed in the garage. She had a high fever. You did not notify security?" she said. Each word ticked off like bullets. "There wasn't time. She wasn't breathing right. You work for this building, Mr. Miller. There are protocols. You bypassed them while in possession of my child." The last 2 words were made of glass and anger. "I found her," he said, a fraction louder. "I didn't take her from anywhere. I carried her to safety." Her jaw tightened. "I am not accusing you of kidnapping, Mr. Miller." There was a beat. "Yet," her eyes added, "I'm accusing you of reckless endangerment and insubordination. You acted without authorization. I cannot have liabilities like you in my building." The truth flared in him. There are rules. But there are lives, and then settled, because hunger sat behind it like a quiet judge. "Miss Sterling," he said evenly, "if I had stopped to ask permission, your daughter might—" "Stop," she said, as if he were a faucet that offended her. "You don't get to use my daughter for leverage in this conversation. Effective immediately, you're terminated. HR has your paperwork. Security will escort you down." The door opened before he could answer. A guard stood there, eyes anywhere but Ethan's. Ava nodded once, her gaze a sheet of winter. "We're done." The cardboard box was already prepared when he reached the small break room, his coffee mug, his second pair of gloves, his daughter's drawing of a stick figure holding a mop under a sky full of blue scribbles. On the elevator down, his throat tightened painfully. He forced a breath in, another out. As the tower released him floor by floor like spare change, the sidewalk outside felt too bright. People hurried past, juggling lattes and ambitions, none of them aware that a man's life had tilted by 2 degrees and would never sit flat again. Their apartment wore its attempts at cheerfulness like a brave kid at a funeral. Sunlight smudged the floor, cartoons murmured in the next room, and the kitchen smelled like toast and something slightly burned. Lily was at the table drawing a house with improbable windows. "Daddy," she chirped, then peered at the clock. "You're home early. Is it a surprise day?" He set the box on the counter, forcing a smile that felt like a pulled muscle. "Something like that." She held up her drawing. "I made us a new house. It has a ladder to the roof. That means if the stars fall, we can catch them." "That's a solid plan," he said, voice steady, hands steadier. He kissed the top of her head. "PB&J, sound good for dinner?" "With banana slices," she said, solemn. "Because potassium makes you brave." He laughed, a small boat in high water. "Exactly." He waited until she was asleep before he set the box on the table again. He took the drawing out and taped it to the fridge, in a space cleared just for it. The quiet pressed in, heavier than any shift. He drank water, sat, stared at the opposite wall as if there were answers written on it with invisible ink. He'd find a job. Somewhere. Warehouse work. Night watch. Anything. He had been poor before. He had been humiliated before. He could do both again, if he had to, but the unfairness of it scraped like sand in a wound. He had carried a child through the night, and the morning had rewarded him with a pink slip. He slept badly and woke worse. A hospital room can feel like a chapel if the lighting behaves. The morning after the morning Ethan was fired. Sunlight slid down the wall and pooled in a corner where a girl read a picture book. Ella's fever was down to something that had stopped frightening the nurses. Her hair lay on the pillow like a dark river. Beside her, a woman in a crisp suit sat too straight for a hospital chair. "Mom?" Ella said, voice hoarse but happy. Ava Sterling bent instantly. Her face changing so quickly, it would have shocked anyone who knew her from the tower. "Honey, I'm here." Ella touched the band around her wrist, then the IV tape, then the air between them, as if checking what was real. "The janitor saved me," she said. Ava's lashes lowered. "What did you say?" Ella's gaze drifted. A slow replay. "I went down to the car 'cause I left my art kit. Then I felt dizzy. Everything spun. He found me. He carried me like in the movies. He stayed all night." She swallowed carefully. "He was nice." Ava's hand tensed on the blanket. "Ella, he saved my life," Ella whispered, and the words bent in the air like light through water. And something in Ava's expression cracked something hairline, something a woman like her would repair immediately, if she could find the right epoxy. For once, she didn't try to fix it. She stood abruptly, crossing to the window, as if the view could put the world back into an arrangement that made cognitive sense. The city blinked up at her, thousands of windows reflecting thousands of people who were not thinking about her shame. Outside the door, a security officer cleared his throat softly. "Miss Sterling? You wanted an update." "Later," she said, voice steady again. Then, gentler to the small girl behind her. "Rest, baby." Ella dozed. Ava took out her phone, flicked through overnight reports, found the line she had ignored. Unknown male transported the minor to ER. Employee ID later matched to Ethan Miller, janitorial staff. She exhaled slowly. There would be time to make this right. There had to be. Guilt is heavy. Remorse is heavier. But action is heavier than both. And it moves. It took 12 hours to track his address. HR had the old one. Security had the wrong one. In the end, it was the facility supervisor who knew where Ethan slept, because good supervisors learn the maps of their people's lives whether or not the org chart requires it. She went alone. No assistant, no security, no PR team whose job was to sanitize humanity. The building Ethan lived in had a reluctant elevator and a hallway with walls the color of old documents. She knocked. It felt almost obscene to bring her white suit into the space outside his door. Footsteps. The door opened. He looked surprised, then not. Some emotions were too tired to register surprise properly. "Miss Sterling," he said, as if greeting a weather system, not a person. "Mr. Miller," she said, and the name felt different now that guilt sat inside it. "May I come in?" He considered it, then stepped back. The living room was small but clean. The television was off but still faintly warm cartoons by the look of the paused screen. A string of paper stars hung lopsided over a small bookcase. On the coffee table sat a stack of library books. A lonely ceramic giraffe, missing one ear. And a rent notice face down. "Would you like water?" he asked, because his mother had taught him that decency didn't leave just because dignity did. "No, thank you." She stood, hands folded, then let them fall. "I came to apologize." He waited. Something like caution flitted across his face and vanished. "My daughter told me what happened," Ava said. "You found her in the garage. You took her to the hospital when she needed speed, not protocol. You stayed with her. You left a note." Her voice thinned, for just a second. "I misjudged you," and I used the power I have to make a wrong thing official. I am sorry. The words were clean and without decoration. He had learned to distrust apologies wrapped in bows. These were not that. Still, he said nothing. He looked over her shoulder at a magnetic whiteboard covered in multiplication tables, scrawled in purple marker. She said, Ava stopped, swallowed, continued. She said you saved her life. Out of the hallway, a small voice cut the room in half. Daddy? Who's there? A girl peered at them, a child with brown curls and a T that declared in wobbly letters, Science is magic with receipts. She had a bandage on her finger covered with 2 overlapping stickers, as if one protection was never enough. This is Miss Sterling, Ethan said. She runs the big building. The castle? Lily asked. Ava managed a tiny smile. Something like that. Do you have a dragon? Lily asked. Only in meetings, Ava said, shocking herself by enjoying her own answer. Ethan's mouth tilted. A moment balanced on a wire. And then he took a breath. Thank you for telling me, he said to Ava. And for coming yourself. He didn't say it cost you. He didn't say I was humiliated. He didn't say I would carry her again even if it cost me twice. He simply said, Thank you. I would like to offer you reinstatement, Ava said, once business returned to her posture like a well-fitted jacket. Not to janitorial, to technical support. Interim, reporting to facilities engineering. You were a mechanical systems engineer. Your resume. I should have actually looked. He blinked. You have my resume? I have everything, she said softly. It's a terrible habit. Then, more human, will you come back? He glanced toward the hallway where Lily had vanished, then back. Yes. Good, Ava said, and then, reckless before she could stop herself. And I'd also like to apologize to Lily. You didn't do anything to Lily, he said, perplexed. I did something to her father, Ava replied. And children live inside the consequences of what we do to their parents. For the first time, he looked at her as if she were not a title stitched to bone but a person trying to deserve the next breath. Lily? He called gently. Come say hello properly. Lily shuffled in, curious. Ava crouched, an expensive suit, bending to a cheap carpet. Hi Lily, my name is Ava. I made a mistake, and I'm going to fix it. Grown-ups make a lot of mistakes, Lily said matter-of-factly. That's why there's erasers. Ava smiled, genuinely now. I'll bring a big one. Bring gummy bears instead, Lily advised. 'Cause my dad likes the red ones. But don't tell him I told you. Ava flicked a glance up. Ethan pretended to study the ceiling. For a second, something warm and ridiculous nudged the corner of reality. When Ava stood, the room shrank again around her height and clarity. Start Monday, she said to Ethan. Badge will be at security. Title will be Technical Support Associate, Interim. We'll review in 90 days. He nodded slowly. I'll be there. She hesitated. Thank you, she added. Unexpected. Unarmored. For Ella, after she left, the apartment felt bigger. Air returned to the corners. Lily tugged his sleeve. Is she a bad queen or a good queen? He thought of ice melting and a woman crouching to apologize to a third grader. Complicated queens can still be good, he said. Okay, Lily nodded, satisfied. Can we have pancakes for dinner to celebrate your unfiring? Absolutely, he said, and meant it like a vow to the world. On Monday, whispers traveled ahead of him like a parade you can't opt out of. He's back. He's with facilities. Nepotism through heroism. Still cute, though. He let the words pass. They were weather. Weather didn't last. The technical support bullpen was warmer than the floors above engineers who wore hoodies and sarcasm. A woman with a cactus army guarding her monitor. A guy whose keyboard was more sticker than plastic. His supervisor, Marco Reyes, stuck out a hand. Miller. Heard you were once one of us, and then got lost in Mopeland. He grinned. We're glad you survived. I come bearing humble skills, Ethan said. Great, because the chiller on the lower HVAC is throwing tantrums and the building automation system is gaslighting us. Marco slapped him on the back. Come on, let's make the tower purr. It took 2 hours for Ethan to remember the exact feel of wrench, to bolt satisfaction. It took 3 to trace a jittering fault that had eluded the team for a week. It took a day for someone to set 2 coffee cups on his desk without asking, and for him to realize he was being adopted. At 5:42 p.m., a shadow fell across his station. He didn't look up right away. He was deep inside a control schematic that could either save the company $300,000 a year or blow a fuse the size of a lawsuit. The shadow waited. Amused, he finally glanced up. Ava Sterling looked like someone who always knew how a story ended and didn't need you to agree with her about it. Now, oddly, she looked like someone willing to ask, just in case. "How's your first day?" she asked, surprising the entire bullpen, which tried and failed to look uninterested. "Good," he said then, because honesty had been a tether for too long to drop it now. "Better than good." Her gaze slid to the open schematic on his screen. "Is that the chiller loop?" "Yes. You're rerouting the control logic to level out the peaks." He blinked. "You read schematics?" "I own the building," she said dryly. "It seems indecent not to understand what makes it breathe." He smiled despite himself. "Then you'll like this part," he pointed. "If we add a dynamic delta T reset here, the pumps won't overreact when the conference floors surge. We lose the roller coaster. We gain efficiency." "How much?" "Rough math, 220 to 300,000 a year." She turned that number over like a coin catching light. "Show me a proposal." "Sure," he said. "I can draft one this week." "Tonight," she corrected gently, not unkindly. "If you can, I want it for tomorrow's ops review." He could have bristled. Instead, he nodded. He remembered how to run on the smell of goals. "Tonight," he said. She started to turn, then paused. "Also, Ella made you this." From a slim designer tote, she pulled a folded paper crane. It was fatter than Precision preferred, wings lopsided, and perfect. "She says it's a hospital bird that only eats fevers." He took the crane as if it were a relic. "Tell her I'll keep it on my desk to scare germs." Ava's mouth warmed. "I will." She left. The bullpen pretended to breathe again. Marco leaned over, stage whispering. Well. The queen descends from the tower to flirt with the knight of the boilers." Ethan rolled his eyes. "Go recalibrate something." "Already recalibrated your reputation, pal," Marco said. "It's trending. Success breeds scrutiny, and scrutiny comes with people like Richard Hale, the COO, whose suits had better posture than most men." He found Ethan 2 days later in a conference room, mid-presentation to ops. A clean deck, clear numbers, the slightly nervous energy of a man unused to having his voice piped through ceiling speakers. Richard smirked at slide 3. "We're letting janitorial alumni set capital priorities now?" he murmured to someone with a laugh too loud for the size of the joke. Ethan continued. "And by softening the pump response curve, we eliminate short cycling and cut our electricity spend significantly." He finished with a simple chart. Money saved versus morale gained. The second line was cheeky, but the room smiled. Even numbers enjoyed a little humor. Questions came. Ethan answered. When the room emptied, Richard lingered like gum under a desk. "Not bad for someone who learned HVAC in a broom closet," he said. "Not bad for someone who learned finance from reading the backs of receipts," Ethan said, not looking up, because sometimes the mop has teeth. Ava appeared as if conjured by the scent of a cheap fight. "Richard," she said cool. "Do you have actionable feedback, or just ambient noise?" Richard's smile thinned. "Just making sure standards remain." "Aspirational. My standard. We keep people who save us money and lives," Ava said. "In that order only because of sequence, not priority." Richard left with the speed of a man who knew better than to be the last person she looked at when she was angry. Ava turned to Ethan. "You okay?" He allowed himself a small grin. "I've been bullied by worse." Her eyes flickered. "I'm working on removing the worse from your ecosystem." "Don't," he said lightly. "Keep him. Everyone needs a villain to pace themselves against." Her laugh surprised both of them. It slid into quiet, then into something like an acknowledgement that laughter was a form of truce. Some intimacy is built in candlelight. Theirs began in fluorescent, beside a humming air handler while a light drizzle wrote poetry. None of them had time to read on the windows. It happened like this. A tech named Anya sliced her palm on a fan shroud. The cut wasn't deep, but it bled enthusiastically. Ethan was there first. He wrapped the hand expertly. The competence of a man who had once done more than sweep floors, showing itself like a muscle flexed for the first time in years. "You always carry gauze?" Ava asked, having followed the commotion like a magnet follows a current. "Single, dad kit," he said, twisting the tape gently. Bandages, granola bars, tiny dinosaur stickers, the Holy Trinity. Anya exhaled a laugh, color returning. "I'm keeping the dino." "Take two," Ethan said. They travel in herds. Later, in the break room, Ava stood beside him as the coffee machine groaned to life. "I don't remember the last time I saw someone make competence look kind," she said. He looked at her. The air thinned. "Competence without kindness is just efficiency," he said quietly. "I used to be proud of efficiency. Then the worst thing happened, and kindness is the only thing that showed up that night and stayed." Her gaze searched his face and found the shadow still living there. "I'm sorry," she said, genuine. "Me too," he replied. And they were not speaking about the same event, and also exactly the same event. A week later, she passed him in a corridor while on a call. She was speaking in fluent French about an acquisition. He watched her slide from a language of seduction to a language of war without changing shoes. He thought, she is the kind of woman who is never surprised and often hurt. He thought, be careful. He thought, too late, you're already not careful. Emergency drills are designed to bore people into survival. Sterling Tower ran them quarterly, paperwork in triplicate. Checklists, laminated and smug. The real emergencies never respected calendars. The alarm went off at 8:13 p.m. on a Thursday when most of the top floor still hummed. Red strobes turned the hall into a heartbeat. The building automation system hiccuped and failed to auto-unlock a single critical door. The secondary data room, a concrete womb with more heat than patience. Ava had been inside. She had stepped in to check a patch log, because control is a habit disguised as diligence. When the door clanked, she frowned, tried the handle, and felt the first prickle of irritation that precedes fear. Smoke stitched a thin line under the far wall where a cable tray held a grudge. Ethan was 2 floors down when the building told him where she was with a soft beep in his ear. The tech channel mapping heat signatures, the old habit of looking for the biggest problem first. He ran. A security guard fumbled with a control panel. "It's not responding. Manual override is jammed." "Move," Ethan said, not unkindly. He pried the metal plate open with a screwdriver, reached into the throat of the wall, and pulled a sticked relay free with a grunt. The lock thunked, but didn't release. "Back," he shouted, and planted his boot near the handle, body a lever. The jam screamed. The door cracked. Heat slapped his face like a hand. He shoved again. It opened enough for a man to become a promise. Ava stood inside. Jacket tied around her mouth, eyes burning, still not coughing because control, even now. "Go," she said when she saw him. She said it the way people say save yourself and don't you dare leave me at the same time. "Not without you," he said, which she later realized was the only line that could have pulled her across that threshold without argument. They stumbled into the corridor as sprinklers finally stuttered awake. Cold water beat the heat into submission. They dropped to their knees, breath sawing. Alarms wailed. A security team dragged a fire hose like a silver snake and fed it to the room. Somewhere, Richard Hale shouted about liabilities. Somewhere else, Marco cheered because he had wanted to break that door for months. A medic knelt. "Ma'am? Sir? You burned?" "Singed pride," Ethan said. His hands shook. He clenched them until they listened. Ava turned her face toward him, wet hair plastered across her cheek, eyes so alive it hurt. "You saved my life," she said, quiet and enormous. He swallowed, then made the obvious joke, because too much sincerity can break you if you take it neat. "So we're even?" he asked. "We are not keeping score," she replied. "And if we were, you'd be 2-0. He laughed, breathless. "I'll try to stop saving you. It seems to upset your COO. Her eyes warmed even as the alarm shrieked. Upsetting Richard is a public service. There is a kind of night that makes confession feel sensible. The sky above the city was a dark sheet pierced by stubborn stars. The rooftop garden on 54 was simple, a rectangle of grasses, benches, a view that turned even failures into art. Ava found him leaning on the railing, dried and changed now into the spare shirt he kept in his locker, because life had taught him to expect mess. He didn't turn. "You shouldn't be up," she said. "You inhaled a lungful of burning plastic." "You shouldn't be up," he said. "You inhaled a corporation." She came to stand beside him. The city breathed below. For a while, that was enough. "My marriage ended in this building," she said finally. Not legally, paperwork happened elsewhere. But the end was here. Floor 42. A hallway with bad lighting. He told me he was in love with someone who didn't treat work like oxygen. He said I was remarkable and unbearable. It was intentional that he used both. Ethan stared forward. "People who leave like to make the story theirs." She nodded. "I made the company my story." A pause. "It worked. Mostly." He said nothing. Some silences are the exact shape of comfort. "My daughter is my real story," she added, and her voice changed key on daughter, the way a violin does when a player touches the right string with reverence. "You are in that story, whether we like it or not." "We?" he asked softly. She turned slightly. "Do you like it?" He let the question sit in his chest for a measured count of heartbeats. "Truth thrives when you give it room." "Yes," he said, simply. Something unclenched in her. It was almost visible, like a thread sliding out of a knot. She took one step closer, then another, then stopped. "I don't know how to do this without making it a merger," she confessed, wrecking him with the honesty of it. "Don't acquire me," he said, smiling. "Just know me." "And you?" she asked. "What do you not know how to do?" "Trust that good things stay," he said. "But I'm learning." She reached for his hand. It was there. Warm, real, mapped with work. The city lit them in gold. A door opened behind them. "Miss Sterling?" Richard's voice carried disapproval like static. "We need a statement for the media about the alarm." She didn't let go of Ethan's hand when she turned. "Draft something," she said. "Send it to legal." Her tone made it clear that the conversation between her and Gravity, and the man beside her, outranked anything that could be typed. Richard blinked at their joined hands, recalculated his next 3 months, and left. Ava faced Ethan again, amusement ghosting her mouth. "I suppose that was a statement." "Accurate," he said. They stood there until the air deepened and the city's heartbeat slowed. When they finally left the rooftop, they did not discuss what they were walking toward. Some roads do not require a map. They only ask for courage. The next morning, the tower acted like it hadn't almost aspirated itself. Operations ran a meeting about the fire incident, while HR ran one about boundaries. Both were necessary. Both bored Ethan in equal measure until the last 5 minutes, when someone from legal raised a hand and asked if there was a conflict of interest if the CEO publicly praised a non-executive employee for heroic action. Ava answered before anyone else could write a memo. "The conflict would be to pretend he didn't do it," she said. "That is all." And somehow, for a building that worshipped polysyllabic sentences, that was all. By afternoon, he had 3 emails from departments he barely knew, asking if he could take a quick look at a problem that had lived in their closets for months. He took quick looks. He drew neat diagrams. He wrote plain sentences that made complicated things look unafraid. He found a gift on his desk after lunch, a bag of gummy bears, all red, a note in a child's handwriting. "The red ones are best. Don't share." Ella underneath, another tiny note in fancier script. "I told her you would share." He grinned and walked down to security to tape the paper crane inside his badge case, with the gravity of someone installing a relic into a cathedral. At 5:03 p.m., he and Ava crossed in the hallway. Their steps adjusted unconsciously until they fell into the same cadence. "Dinner?" she asked as if discussing metrics. Only if you let me pay with red gummy bears, he said. Done, she replied. And it felt like humor and a promise. They went nowhere fancy. She chose a diner 3 blocks from the tower that had kept the same menu font since 1970-something. The waitress called her honey. The chef yelled order slang in the back that made Ethan's shoulder muscles unclench by instinct. What will the press say, he teased, if they find the Empress of Sterling eating grilled cheese with a man who smelled like smoke yesterday? That she has taste, Ava said, and took a bite. And a nose for competent men. He choked on his water, then laughed. It burst from him louder than he allowed at work. Heads turned. He didn't care. They spoke of children the way Ella pronounces certain words on purpose, as if auditioning for a more dramatic language. The way Lily leaves notes for the tooth fairy, that are essentially small contracts with appendices. They spoke of loss the way you speak of countries you once lived in. With accuracy, but without tourism. They spoke of work with the efficiency of co-conspirators who understood systems. And eventually, they did not speak at all for 3 minutes that stretched delicately and did not tear. When the bill came, he reached. She let him. Some victories were ceremonial and mattered. Outside, the night smelled like wet pavement flirting with neon. A cab slowed. She didn't flag it. They stood. The city obligingly acting like a soundtrack. You kissed me in a fire alarm, he said lightly. I stood very close and confessed my failings in a fire alarm, she corrected, equally light. But, accuracy accepted. May I kiss you without sprinklers? He asked, not flippant and not afraid. Yes, she said, and the word looked beautiful in her mouth. It was not a cinematic kiss, no sudden rainstorm, no orchestral swell. It was simply right, the kind that is quieter because both people are listening. When they parted, she touched his cheek like a signature. I should go, she said. Ella has a piano lesson to not practice for, and Lily and I have a fort to build that violates at least 3 furniture codes. He replied. Break them, she said. Some rules are unworthy. She got into the cab. He watched it merge into the city's bloodstream, until it was only light and noise and the memory of her hand. By the following week, the tower had curated the story into palatable slices. Minor alarm, swift containment, routine checkups, no material impact. Everyone returned to their dashboards, status lights green, nervous systems pretending they were too. Richard Hale did not pretend. He shifted strategy. If public shaming didn't dislodge Ethan, quiet sabotage might. It began small. A requisition for sensors Ethan needed went missing. A meeting he was scheduled to brief moved rooms without notice. A facilities request queue burped 70 fake tickets on a Friday afternoon that made Ethan look like he'd ignored half the building for a month. He stayed late, triaging, missing a movie night he'd promised Lily. He texted her, I owe you popcorn twice as big. She sent back a photo of a comically large bowl. He stared at it until the exhaustion in his bones felt like gravel. At 9:11, Ava appeared in the doorway of the tech bullpen. She didn't look like a CEO in that moment. She looked like a person who'd counted the minutes and then refused to wait any longer. You're still here, she observed softly. So are you, he returned, and the fact that their exhaustion rhymed comforted him too much. Walk with me, she said. They took the service corridor, the tendon of the building where ductwork bared its ribs and maintenance notes bloomed on tape like graffiti. Do you know what I learned as a young executive? She asked. A system that is beginning to scare you often starts as a set of inconveniences with excellent excuses. The excellent excuses showed up today, he said. Missing sensors, phantom tickets. Richard's fingerprints are very clean when he works in this register, Ava said. We'll need our own register. I'll document everything, Ethan said. We build a narrative out of boring details. That's where truth lives. Spoken like an engineer and a single father, she said. Both jobs require gentle stubbornness. He smiled. Gentle stubbornness keeps the world from cracking. They stopped by a small window at the end of the corridor, where the city lights filtered through a grime pattern, like an abstract painting. Silence moved between them. Companionable. He fought the urge to lean slightly. She would meet him halfway, he knew. and the hallway did not deserve the sight. "I have dinner with Ella after this," she said, almost apologizing. "I have a date with the impossible math of bedtime reading times 2, he replied. "We're both very glamorous." Frequently, she took a breath. "Sunday. Bring Lily to the park at 9. We'll attempt sports," he laughed. "How do you attempt sports?" "Badly," she admitted, and he loved the way her voice changed when she allowed herself to be ordinary. "Sunday," he said, "we'll bring snacks." "And I," she said, "will bring too many hand wipes." "God tier," he said, grinning. They turned back toward the elevators, like comrades leaving a quiet chapel to rejoin a noisy city. The park was a green rectangle pinned into the grid of the city with stubborn optimism. A baseball diamond shimmered faintly with yesterday's footprints. A dog sprinted after a frisbee, as if salaried to do so. Fathers in yoga pants negotiated peace treaties about swings. Ella spotted them first. "Lily!" she squealed, sprinting across the grass. Lily barreled back with equal velocity. They collided into a tangle that observed no corporate hierarchy. Ava and Ethan followed more slowly. "I brought a cooler," he said, raising a small blue cube. "I brought an over-engineered picnic," she said, gesturing to an insultingly elegant basket. "I used a checklist." "Of course you did." They spread a blanket. The girls drew a crude city with sticks in the dirt. Towers, bridges. A dragon you could only see if you squinted optimistically. "Okay," Ava announced, smoothing non-existent crumbs. "We shall now participate in the sport called catch." "You say that like you're applying for permission," Ethan teased. "I've been interviewed by prime ministers and billionaires," she said gravely. "None terrify me as much as my daughter when I fail to catch a ball she threw competently." "Reasonable," he allowed. They tossed a softball in lazy arcs. Ava's first throw listed 3 degrees left. Her second found a straighter spine. By the 5th, she smirked at him like a competitive younger sister. On the 7th, Lily darted in front and snagged it with improbable grace. "I am a raccoon," she shouted, which was statistically adjacent to the truth. They lunched on strawberry halves, tiny pretzels, and Ava's fancy sandwiches that pretended to be casual with their crusts already off. A breeze dialed the heat down. The girls constructed a fort under the slide that violated at least 3 municipal guidelines and 15 apartment rules. Ethan and Ava pretended not to be charmed out of their professional faces. At some point, the conversation deepened the way ponds do when you can't tell at which step the water touched your waist. "I worry about being enough," Ava said quietly, watching Ella braid grass with concentration. "For her. For me." "You are," he said, then amended. "You're enough even when you don't perform being enough." She turned that over. "And you?" "I worry about giving Lily a life that doesn't require apology." "She already has it," Ava said, certainty softening her voice. "She lives in the galaxy where you are the Sunday." The remark landed and rippled through him. Gratitude did something unscientific to his respiratory system. "You have a very inconvenient way of saying exactly what I didn't know I needed to hear," he murmured. Ava smiled into the wind. "Yes," she said. "I'm told I'm inconvenient." They packed up when the shadows lengthened into long, responsible shapes. At the curb, Ella hugged Ethan's waist suddenly. "Thank you for saving me," she said, as if it had just now fully arrived in her body as fact. He bent. "You're very welcome," she whispered, conspiratorial. "Next time, save Mommy sooner." He choked on a laugh. "Working on it." Ava heard and raised an eyebrow with a theatricality she rarely allowed. "My daughter is a union organizer," she said. "She negotiates for hugs." "I'm pro-union," he replied. "I'll walk the line." "Good," she said, and something warm leaked out of her edges again. The following Wednesday, Ethan stood in front of the Executive Operations Committee with a deck that resembled calm. The title, Sterling HVAC Optimization. Balanced control, human comfort, and cost reduction. The opening slide contained no heroics, only numbers. "We overcorrect when conference rooms surge," he began. "The pumps interpret the spike as a new normal and chase a ghost. By introducing a dynamic delta-T reset and tightening sensor hysteresis, we smooth the response curve." "For the non-engineers?" a board member teased. We stop panicking, Ethan said plainly. We make the building breathe like a professional singer instead of a toddler with a candy. Laughter softened the room. He detailed the plan. Hardware retrofits that didn't require walls to be opened. Software patches written in. House. Staged rollouts to avoid downtime. The cost, precise. The savings, conservative. The risk, honestly, described. Richard asked 4 clever questions with a tone designed to sound helpful. Ethan answered each with unembarrassed clarity. What he didn't do was show teeth, and because he didn't, the room noticed whose jaw had gotten tight. Afterwards, by the elevators, Ava touched his elbow. You were very good. You too, he said. You let the work be the loudest person in the room. She looked at him. The elevator doors slid open, and she didn't move. Dinner. My place, she said. The invitation tucked into the shape of a command, because that's how she knew how to ask. Yes, he said, before his caution committee could arrange a meeting. Her apartment was sky and light, and the kind of quiet you pay extra for. A pianist lived in the speakers. A small army of succulents guarded a window that considered the city and found it interesting but not intimidating. On the fridge, Ella's artwork registered in the same space as a Michelin-starred chef's magazine spread. It calmed him instantly. She cooked. This surprised him less than it might have. People who control everything at altitude often love the chemistry of small fires. I do a very adult grilled cheese, she said without apology. Caramelized onions. 3 cheeses. A pan that believes in me. I believe in you, he said, and meant it annoyingly much. They ate at the counter, elbows almost touching, the city performing outside without demanding applause. Conversation braided easily. Policy and personal. The way corporate security thinks about risk. The way children think about bedtime. The way both are wrong and right in alternating turns. After, she stood facing him, palms on the counter's edge, backlit by her own view. I am out of practice, she said. That makes 2 of us, he said. This is me being blunt because I don't trust subtlety to deliver important things. I like you. I admire you. I am interested in your mouth. She blinked once, as if verifying that the sentence had not caused inclement weather. And I am also the person who signs bonuses and fires people if I must. So, any movement we make must be honest, compartmentalized where necessary, and never, ever used as leverage by anyone. Agreed, he said. Every neuron radiant with relief that her integrity matched his desire. No shortcuts. No secrets. We go slow enough to stay true. She exhaled, a quiet laugh riding the breath, like a white flag that was not surrender but consent. Come here then, she murmured. He did. The kiss was unhurried but decisive, like a well-written sentence landing on exactly the right word. Later, as they stood by the window, she said, Do you know what Ella told me this morning, before school? What? She said, If you marry Ethan, will he make pancakes on Saturdays? Because Mr. Wong at school says dads in movies always do that when they love everybody. Ethan grinned until it hurt. I make very competent pancakes. You make everything competent look comforting, she said. I'm not sure I believe that combination existed. It does, he said. You're looking at it. She kissed him again to prove the theorem, then sent him home with a container of grilled cheese halves that Lily devoured with the reverence of a pilgrim. Good stories know that joy must be challenged or it becomes sentimental. Richard Hale had patience and an accountant's hatred of romance. He called a private meeting with select board members, framed concerns in bullet points so even cowards could nod, and suggested that the CEO's personal entanglement with a mid-level employee represented perception risk. Ava learned of the meeting not from spies but from a decent board member who disliked ambush theater. She requested to attend. Her email: If you wish to discuss my ethics, have the ethics to do it in front of me. The meeting room at dusk looked like a painting. Dark wood, city burning outside, professionalism arranged like museum pieces around the table. Richard opened with a pleasant throat clearing. As stewards of the company's reputation, Richard, Ava said, not pleasant. Please come out of the curtain. We're all adults. He smiled thinly. We must consider appearances. The public may interpret Miss Sterling's heroic praise of Mr. Miller. His shift from janitorial to technical. His increasing visibility as merit, Ava said. Which would be correct. As favoritism, Richard finished. Which would be damaging. A board member cleared her throat. What evidence of favoritism do we have aside from proximity? Richard slid a folder forward. A collection of incidents. Accelerated approvals. A protected status on ops tickets. He glanced at Ava with the satisfaction of a cat who thinks the goldfish finally miscalculated. Ava picked up the folder, flipped, calm. These are invented, she said. Or misinterpreted. Or both. Ops tickets. The protected tag is a safety flag we instituted for any work orders involving potential life safety. Ethan works those. Because he's good. Because he broke down a door to save me. Regarding approvals, I asked him to fast-track the chiller project because it saves us $300,000 a year. If that is favoritism, then I favor money, which is consistent with my job description. A ripple of laughter, suppressed quickly. And yes, she continued, voice level. I am seeing Mr. Miller. We disclosed that to legal and HR the day after we first kissed. Here are the mitigation steps. He does not report up my chain. His comp decisions are approved and signed by Marco and by an external comp consultant. We've implemented a firewall on my access to his performance data beyond high-level metrics. This is the policy we apply to any executive relationship. We're applying it more strictly because I refuse to be the reason we weaken good rules. A longer silence, this one respectful. Richard's mouth pinched. It's still messy. Humans are, Ava said. And we are a company made of them, not for robots yet. If your concern is reputational, fine. Shall we talk reputation? Layoffs 3 years ago that you insisted we time to maximize stock pop? That hurt our reputation. The press found our leak plan distasteful. The way we handled the data scare last summer, that helped our reputation. This incident, yesterday's fire alarm, we handled it. Competently. Mr. Miller helped materially. I plan to reward competence loudly. The market likes it. A board member who had said nothing thus far leaned forward. Richard, forgive me, but are you asking us to manage optics or outcomes? Because my portfolio likes outcomes. Richard receded a centimeter, merely raising potential issues. Duly raised, Ava said. Duly measured. Now let's do our jobs. The meeting dissolved like a bad flavor leaving the mouth. After, in the corridor, the decent board member squeezed Ava's arm. Don't let perfect men who have never been brave tell you what risk is, she murmured, and vanished into an elevator that smelled like integrity. Ava texted Ethan, delay dinner, slaying paper dragons. He replied, I have gummy bear arrows. 2 months later, the first phase of the HVAC project went live. The building's mood improved, the air felt less petulant. Conference rooms no longer oscillated between tundra and tropic, and facilities stopped being everyone's favorite villain. Numbers followed mood. The first energy bill of the quarter arrived with a reduction so satisfying that Marco printed it out and taped it above the coffee machine like a calendar pinup. Press noticed. A profile in a business magazine framed Sterling as a case study in sensible sustainability. Not the gaudy kind, but the adult category. The piece quoted Ava saying, we don't chase shiny, we fix things. It quoted Ethan saying, comfort is dignity, let's engineer for both. It quoted Richard not at all, which he noticed with forensic pain. Internally, HR rolled out a policy deck about relationships that was both prudent and not performatively puritanical. People read it, snorted, and got back to work. The rumor mill found new grain in marketing's failed slogan test and a sales VP's unfortunate karaoke video. Everyone was grateful. Ethan learned the director's way of walking into rooms, not first, but not last, with attention that stuck to problems rather than people's insecurities. He learned to delegate without apologizing for doing so. He learned that saying, good job, when you actually mean it is management's version of sorcery. He also learned the choreography of a life that braided with someone else's. Tuesdays at Ava's, Fridays at his place. Co-parent logistics more complex than airside flow control. Piano lesson. Soccer. The science fair that requires trifold boards and emotional fortitude. Dinners where the kids bartered peas for dessert with the sophistication of diplomats. Weekends at the museum where Ella lectured the dinosaur skeletons for being insufficiently pink. And Lily wrote labels correcting the labels. Their first fight was about nothing small. An old college friend of Ava's, now a venture capitalist with a magazine smile, dropped by her office unannounced and enveloped her in a hug that lingered. Ethan happened to be there with a set of heat-mapping overlays and a mood that had been uncharacteristically brittle after a sleepless Lily night. He didn't say anything at the time. He didn't know he was saying everything with his face. They argued later in the quiet that follows teeth brushing. Jealousy, Ava said, measuring the word, is not a toy I know how to play with. Me neither, he admitted. It's childish in my mouth. I don't want to live auditioning for your trust, she said. I can't. And I don't want to be the man who makes you prove things you already are, he said. I won't. Silence. Then she sat, palms open. Teach me how to do this, the way that doesn't rot us. Say what hurts as soon as it hurts, he said. Ask what we can fix. If we can't fix it, name it so it doesn't corrode in the dark. She nodded. Good. Then here's mine. When you go quiet, I feel like you're leaving and I'm 12, he inhaled. And when I see men like him touch you like they're entitled to your time, I feel like I'm back on the outside of the glass, hands empty. They looked at each other and saw the shards they each carried. They put them on the table between them, labeled and harmless. The fight ended not with a door but with a promise and the kind of kiss that disguised repair as desire, because sometimes they are the same. Promotion conversations in corporations are rituals. There are bells to ring, scripts to recite, witnesses to nod at the right times. Ava did not love rituals unless they protected something real. This one did. She asked him to meet her in a small conference room, with bad art and perfect light. Marco was there, pretending he had not been practicing a small speech for a week. Ethan, Ava began. We have an offer. It's very boring and administrative to say it like that. I'll let Marco do the ceremony. Marco grinned. Head of Technical Operations, he said. Formal. With comp that doesn't embarrass us and a budget that does not begin with the number 0. Your work speaks for itself. We're just giving it a nameplate. Ethan blinked. He was prepared to make a joke, but the joke got stuck behind a feeling that started in his chest and ended in his knees. Yes, he said. I'd like that. Good. Ava said softly. Because I would like that. He shook Marco's hand. He looked at Ava and didn't touch her. There are rooms for congratulations and rooms for that answer. He would get the order right. Later, on the rooftop, order could go on break. You deserve it, she said. So do you, he replied. You deserve everything you've built and everything you've allowed to be built around you. She laughed a little helplessly. I'm learning to allow. It chafes. Then it feels like sunlight. He kissed her. The city did its small theater. Somewhere below, a delivery truck blared. Somewhere above, a plane wrote its long white sentence across the sky. He pressed his forehead to hers. Thank you for not saving me, he whispered. She pulled back, amused. That's a first. You didn't swoop or fix or make a job appear out of air. You saw me, and then you made room for what I could already do. He shrugged. That's harder. I'll take the compliment, she said. And cash it. Trouble rarely announces itself in a baritone. Sometimes it arrives as a text from a number you thought you'd deleted. Ethan. It's Mark. We need to talk. Urgent. Mark had been his brother-in-law once, a man who liked shortcuts and owed apologies to schedules and people. Ethan stared at the name until letters felt fictional. He responded carefully. If it's about money, I don't have it. If it's about Lily, say it now. It's about Laura, came the reply. Call me. Laura, his wife. Gone 7 years, living as a photograph, And a smell of rain in his memory, he called. Mark's voice was the same, relentless and tired. I shouldn't be the one telling you, he said. But her mom is in bad shape, and I can't get through to you otherwise. They found a letter when they cleared a storage unit. From her. To you. From before the accident. I think you need to read it. Ethan sat down because his legs chose humility. Where? Mark named a storage facility in a part of the city that liked anonymity. They met that evening in a corridor that smelled like cardboard and the ghosts of too many lives. The manager produced a gray box. Inside, a smaller box. Inside that, an envelope with his name in Laura's hand. He did not open it there. He took it home, placed it on the table as if it might detonate, and stood in the kitchen where Lily could not see his face. Then he opened it carefully. Ethan, the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I didn't find the courage to hand you this before. It's not a confession. It's a map to my insides. You kept asking me where I go when I go quiet. I go to the place where I'm afraid I broke the life we were building by not being as strong as you needed me to be. I go to the place where I think you'll eventually see that I am all soft spots, and you will decide you need more armor. I don't know how to stop being afraid. I don't know how to not be sad sometimes, even when you bake muffins at midnight. I am trying to learn the courage you already have. If I fail you, forgive me for trying slowly. There is no one else I would want to be failed by than you. Because you are kind to failures, the way sun is kind to cold. I hope I give you a better version of me tomorrow. If I don't, hold Lily like the world depends on it. It does. I love you in the shape of our kitchen light at 3 a.m. I love you even when I think I don't deserve you. I love you like a promise I want to keep. L. He stood at the sink and let the letter press on his chest until something yielded and the breath came back different. Then he called Ava. Come over? He asked, voice rough. She arrived with 2 kinds of tea and the silence that doesn't interrogate. He gave her the letter. She read, eyes quiet, then handed it back like it was something holy that didn't belong to her. Grief ages, but it doesn't retire, she said. We accommodate it. We set a place at the table when it shows up without warning. We don't make it sleep on the floor. He nodded. I want to do right by Laura in the way I live now, not the way I stop. You are, she said. Look at Lily. Look at you. He looked. He believed her slowly, which is the correct speed. Lily woke, small feet padding. Why are you sad, Daddy? I found a letter from Mom, he said. It made me miss her. Oh. Lily nodded, very adult. Then we should do the thing where we hold hands and do 3 breaths. She took one of each of theirs, and they breathed like a small manifesto. Ava watched them, a tenderness on her face that felt like a vow. Sterling hosted an industry panel about sensible sustainability and the morality of buildings, a phrase that should be ridiculous and isn't if you've ever shivered under a vent while someone tells you to focus. Ava moderated. Ethan sat on the panel with a city official, a union rep, and a charming academic who said, liminal, only twice. During Q&A, a young engineer stood up. This is for Mr. Miller, she said. How do you handle being underestimated? I'm new. I don't look like the job. People assume I'm lost when I'm not, Ethan considered. At first, I tried to prove I was not what they saw, he said. It made me smaller. Then I started proving the work worked. It made me very, very boring. That's when the underestimation stopped being sticky. Also, he smiled, I made friends with the folks who run the building for real. Security, janitorial, reception. If you know their names and they know yours, the building starts telling you what it wants. And then you become the person who listens, and no one underestimates the person who listens for long. After, in the corridor, the young engineer stopped him. Thank you, she said. I needed someone to model that. Anytime, he said. Also, buy a notebook with a color no one else wants, and write everything down. It makes you look like a wizard when you remember the thing no one else does. She grinned. Purple glitter it is. He turned. Ava was watching him with an expression that would have terrified competitors and made him feel like he was exactly where he should be. December spilled confetti into the calendar. The company holiday event arrived with its usual compulsory cheer. This year, Ava insisted on making it less performative. Instead of a black tie gala that raised money mostly for dry cleaners, they turned the lobby into a winter market, invited families, opened the stage for the employees' kids. Lily and Ella performed a duet. Jingle bells, on a toy xylophone and a small keyboard that had only 5 good notes. It was chaotic and transcendent. People cried in the way adults do when reminded that joy is not a KPI. At the end, Ava took the mic. She was in a simple dress that let her be a person, not a thesis about power. This year, she said, we did not do everything right. We never will, but we did fix a few things. The building breathes better. People do too, I hope. We saved money not by pretending we're smarter than everyone else, but by remembering to listen and adjust. I'd like to publicly thank our head of technical operations, Ethan Miller, for reminding us that competence can be kind, and for literally pulling me out of a room I should not have been in during a fire alarm. Laughter. Applause. She waited. I'd also like to thank the people you don't always see but who hold this place up. Janitorial, security, night shift. If you see them tonight, say their names. She extended a hand. Ethan stepped onto the small stage, to a noise that sounded remarkably like respect. She shook his hand. Then, with the practiced neutrality of a leader and the irrepressible warmth of a human, placed her other hand over his. Speech, Marco yelled from the back, because some friends exist to make you jump into pools. Ethan faced the room. 2 things, he said. 1, buildings and families survive for the same reasons because someone fixes things before they break, and because someone forgives when they already did. 2, the person who sees a mess is often the one who knows where it goes. Listen to them. They're trying to save you time, and sometimes your life. It landed. The applause rolled again, kinder this time, less about performance than permission. After, in a corner by a ridiculous inflatable snowman, Ella tugged Ava's sleeve and whispered, "Now?" Ava smiled. "Now." She turned to Ethan. The whole room receded like a respectful tide. She reached into her pocket and produced a small flat box. He blinked like a man trying not to misread a scene. "It's not what you think," she said, amused, because she knew what it looked like. "It's a key to our rooftop garden." She lowered her voice. "The lock is ancient and has precisely the kind of attitude you dislike. Only 3 people have this key. Now 4. He opened the box. A small brass key lay inside on black velvet. Modest and ridiculous. He looked up. "You saved my daughter," she said. "You saved me. You saved this building from wasting its breath. I am not casual about gifts. Take this as an unserious promise of a serious thing. I want you everywhere I can put you without breaking rules. I want you where I can find you when the world gets loud. I want you at the top of the building when it's quiet." He couldn't speak for a second, because sometimes vocabulary is a coat that doesn't fit the weather. He closed the box, pocketed it, and answered the only way that didn't cheapen the moment. He reached for her hand, and she gave it. Across the room, Lily and Ella executed an unchoreographed high five that hurt their palms and pleased their souls. A year later, winter arrived like a familiar song. The lobby wore lights insufficiently tasteful, in a way that made everyone happier. The energy dashboard glowed modest numbers that excited accountants and bored poets. The elevator chimes had been tuned to a softer note. People said hello more. That's a metric too, even if HR can't chart it yet. Ethan walked through the lobby with a stack of rolled prints under one arm and a bag of pancake mix in the other because Saturdays begin on Fridays if you are the kind of father who is always preparing joy. Employees nodded. Some stopped him to ask about a clanky vent, a new hire, a good place nearby for dumplings. He answered with the decency of a man who remembers being invisible. Ava waited on the mezzanine, leaning on the glass like a woman who had learned to love the view without needing it to be evidence. When he reached her, she took the prints and then his hand. "Ready? For what?" "For a weekend with ruined kitchens," she said. "The girls want to build a science volcano. In our home." Because we advertise recklessness responsibly. Our brand, he said solemnly. They took the elevator up, then the stair to the roof. The garden greeted them like an old friend. The city exhaled. Snow came in polite confetti. The key in his pocket warmed through the fabric of his coat as if agreeing with the weather. Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this? Ava asked quietly. Every day, he said, and then I stop thinking about it so I don't forget to be in it. Stay, she said. I'm not going anywhere, he replied. I was always heading here. I just didn't know the address. She turned, kissed him, and for once, the city seemed to dim its volume, in respect. Below, 1,000 people made small mistakes and fixed them. Above, a plane stitched one more white thread between two places that would never agree on what time it was. Inside the glass, two girls argued affectionately about whether volcanoes should be pink. The building listened to them, adjusted its temperature a degree, and breathed. Later, when the tower slept, when the server room purred instead of hissed, when the last light winked, a story remained. It was not the story of a janitor who lucked into a better life or a CEO who bestowed grace like a royal. It was the story of a man who knew how to clean messes, literal, emotional, systemic, and a woman who learned that the strongest structures are the ones that make room for warmth. Once, in a hospital, a child had whispered a sentence that changed a trajectory. He saved my life. Sometimes a life is more than one person's. Sometimes saving one saves three, or a floor, or a company, or a building that learns, finally, to inhale and exhale without drama. Sometimes redemption is not a chorus but a steady breath, expanding, contracting, sustaining. Not noticed until you decide to notice. On Sunday morning, Ethan flipped pancakes in a kitchen that smelled like butter and the gentle ruin of an impending science experiment. Two girls danced in socks. A CEO in a soft sweater laughed with her whole face. Snow feathered the edges of the window and decided to stay a while. Ethan set a stack of pancakes on the table, 3 plates, 2 syrups, 4 forks, and the paper crane in the middle like a household god. Saturday, he reached for hands. He squeezed. The building breathed with them. The world did too. They ate. They lived. And when the doorbell rang with a neighbor borrowing sugar, everybody yelled, "Come in!" at once because they were, against the odds, and because of them, home.